Welcome to the first episode of Stiletto Talks. Today we are talking with Alyssa Whitfield. She's a CEO, career and style coach, speaker, and founder of Dress for Success Rochester. Alyssa believes that when you develop unbreakable confidence, you are free to make the most out of your career. And as a premier career and style coach, she works with women who want to improve their professional image, elevate their careers, and increase their impact in their communities. As y'all know, we are all about elevating careers here at She's a Boss. So we were all too excited to chat with Alyssa. You're going to want to make sure that you have a pen and paper for today's session because she dropped some jewels, y'all. But before we get into it, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, leave us some comments, right? So y'all have about 2 seconds to go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. All right. So thank you, Alyssa, for being with us today. I'm super excited to have this conversation about executive presence. It's an important topic. As you know, our audience is filled with students, executives, employers, schools, and executive presence is really it's one of those like hard to define things. And, initially coming into this conversation, I was like, we're going to talk about defining executive presence. But, you kind of said to me like, let's talk about redefining executive presence. And I think that is a much more accurate way to have this conversation because not only is the world changing, like we're changing as people, the composition of the work world is changing. So very timely conversation. And I'm not going to keep talking so much because you're really more so the expert here. And I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to make sure we get to cover like all the pieces that we have planned to talk about today. So, let's kick it off with, you can open up with anything, but I know we kind of want to start with defining or redefining what executive presence is.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me. Now, the first part of executive presence is to tell you that my name is Alyssa. Alyssa. That's the first part, is making sure
I got you.
people know who you are, okay? All right, so I am Alyssa Whitfield, and I truly believe that we do need to redefine executive presence. And while the wording may change, the actual concept doesn't change. So executive presence has always been known to mean confidence in how you project yourself in a professional setting, bringing gravitas, confidence, and just exuding leadership, right? However, the word executive in front of that presence maybe is intimidating to some people. And they think, well, I'm not an executive, or I'm not even a professional. I'm a business owner. I'm a entrepreneur, those kind of things. So that term executive presence kind of goes over the head, or people turn a side eye to it, right? Because they don't want to be corporate. And that's how people think of executive presence. So we're going to redefine it. And basically, to me, executive presence is just your reputation, right? It is what people see when you walk in a room, and then what they say when you leave the room.
Okay.
That's how we're going to talk about it, okay? And so for example, you have to own what you believe, or you have to own what you want people to say and think about you. Never leave it up to someone else. So think about someone who walks in the room and all eyes turn to that person, and you immediately just picture that that person has it going on, or has a lot of, they just have the qualities that you believe a leader would have. And then think about yourself. How do you walk into a room? And if we think about it like that, in the simplest terms, is how do I want to show up? Executive presence would be easy, because who doesn't want to show up as the baddest in the room?
Right.
Right? Okay. So we're going to think about it like that. How do you want to talk about it? Do you want to ask questions, or should we just give some tips?
Not let's we're gonna go through. So I like the way you define it, is think about in that sense, especially when we're thinking about like a multi generational audience, right? Because again, executive presence, like almost like an intangible thing to describe. But I know typically one way, or rather elements of executive presence. So we'll start with elements of executive presence. So I'll say a couple things, but the first thing being, right, we're in the US, we're in New York, or both in New York. So when we're thinking about like corporate or even just the world of work, a lot of times, especially now when we think about it, when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, it comes to what are we referencing, right? Like what are we referencing executive presence from and with? So while the categories might pretty much remain the same, which for me, they're communication, appearance, and gravitas, which we'll get to like defining all three of those elements. But when it comes to those things, like what are we basing it off of? Like communication, gravitas, appearance, it's essentially being referenced from a white standpoint in general. It's being referenced from a white standpoint, and we're Black women. So let's start there, like with those elements, how it reflects where we are in the US, how, like, what is the standard of each, or in the historical sense, what is the standard of each, how have things shifted, like since it's come into existence, and, you know, just what are the ways that we can be in control of that narrative.
Yeah, so basically you hit the nail on the head. It came from a white, but you missed, white male.
Yes.
Right? There's a white male standard of how people should look and act and talk in a work situation, right? And then women became, let's say the 80s, you know, became more prominent in the workforce, and decided this is how we're going to look in the workforce. Still kind of putting themselves in that we're going to act like a man in the workplace, because there were lots of books about that, you know, act like a man when you're in the workplace. And so then our clothing suggested that as well. So we had the power suits, and we had, you know, that kind of male look with a feminine kind of twist. And now fast forwarding to now, women are taking charge and owning their own career and their own reputations and how they want to be seen in the world. So we're bringing that change by incorporating ourselves into that new term of executive presence. And I love this space because it is so refreshing to see women on TV and on the news, and just think about it, on the news. This is where you've seen the biggest, I would say, the biggest change. And is that women on the news always looked alike.
Very true.
Right? They always had the same outfits on, same hairdo, all of that. And I would say Black women were on the forefront of changing that, right? Bringing ourselves into it. And for years, it took a long time, but we're there. And I love to see it. I'd love to see it. So let's, you know.
So talk about appearance, right? So you bring up appearance and clothing, and how it shifted from, you know, essentially, in a nutshell, sometimes executive presence can mean, or historically can mean, we're working to shift that now, and it is apparently shifting, but it can mean like, how well can we assimilate into being a white man, right, in the work world, so that we can be viewed as competent enough and viewed as leadership material. And you're saying it's been shifting, you know, we're seeing things shift, especially when we're watching TV and the news and seeing how things have shifted. But how has that affected for me, I don't necessarily feel like it has even shifted necessarily the definition of executive presence. When someone looks at you, like, granted, we're seeing more of a difference in it, in the way that we dress, in the way that we talk, but we're still kind of having that stigma of
No, you know what it is. I'm going to talk about, really, it's about owning it for you, right? So yes, we are always, I feel we're always going to have kind of that patriarch, right? But we have to own who we are and be really comfortable with it so that other people can as well. So that's how I think of executive presence. Like I said, it's how you want to be shown, how you want to show up when you walk in, and then what they're saying when you walk out. So for example, I have 3 ways that I think that you can establish an executive presence or your own brand reputation. All of that kind of fits together. Your personal brand, your reputation, executive presence, it all fits together. And I call it the own method. So you need to own your career. So this is the first part of executive presence in the workplace. You have to own your career. You can't wait for other people to give you opportunities, right? You have to show up in the way that you want them to see you, so that when a promotion comes up or an opportunity comes up, you're on their lips. Because we talked about this before, is that the decisions are made when you're not in the room. So if they don't know who you are, your name is not going to be spoken. So that's that gravitas that you talk about. That's just confidence in your abilities in yourself to let people know who you are. So you have to own.
So what happens when I show up and I'm owning who I am, I'm confident in who I am, but I'm still not getting that promotion. I'm still not being able to make that next step, because oftentimes, regardless of how comfortable you are with your executive presence, how comfortable you are with your brand, the next person might not be comfortable. The person who's in that hiring seat might not be comfortable. So is it now on my shoulders to essentially like dim my light and be a little bit less authentic so that I can step into that next position? Or do I move on? Or like, what do I do in that situation where I feel like I'm showing up authentically and I'm owning myself, but I'm still not getting that progress that I'm looking for?
That's why there's three pieces to this, right? So first you have to own your career. So making sure you're taking advantage of opportunities to do more projects or do the things you like to do very well, and make sure you're recognized for it, right? And one way to do that is to keep track of those things. And that's what we call, it's called reporting. So basically you're reporting on yourself. So you're keeping track of all the achievements and accomplishments and ideas that you had. And then the next part, after you own your career, you got to own your influence. So this is how you influence that person who is making the decisions. Everyone has it, whether it's good influence or bad influence, right? So you've got to own your influence by being a part of that community or that culture at work. So if there's opportunities to go to events that work sponsors, make sure you're there and show up in the way that you want them to see you. And if there's opportunities to go to lunch with coworkers and learn about other positions and be in the know, you have to do that, right? A lot of people think that, oh no, I don't need to go to lunch with them, or I don't really want new friends, right? It's not about friends. It's about making yourself seen at work and teamwork.
I completely agree with that one.
If people don't see you, you're not on the team.
Very true. That is so true, because I like how you broke it down, because at first I'm like, own your influence, but I like the examples that you give for it, because a couple of things come to mind. Number one, I recently read a book by Minda Harts. I don't remember the title at this moment, but she mentioned the same thing, that sometimes you're missing out on opportunities because you're not showing up in those spaces. And one thing that we talk a lot about as She's a Boss is networking and mentorship. And there's the cliche of it's not who you know, is, or what is it, or I think I might
It's
be
not
better,
what you know, it's who you
who you know,
know.
but I like to add a third piece, is who knows you. Because a lot
Thank
of
you.
times you don't even know anybody, but there's people that is advocating for you. But if you're not showing up in those spaces, then nobody is
Can.
gonna know that you're here. Nobody's gonna know that you exist.
That's right. And that's why it brings it back to me saying, what are they saying when you leave the room?
Mm.
Right? If you have been in a room and you have not connected, what they're saying is bye, period. Right? Not Liska was awesome. Alyssa, oh, we need her on our team. Did you see the way she worked this room? We need her on our team. Things like that. And then my third part is, obviously you have to own your style, dress the part, right? And this is not the typical, oh, dress for the job you want. I don't believe in that.
Mm.
I believe in dressing the way you want people to see you and respecting the spaces that you're in, right? I just call it being appropriate.
Okay.
Right. And in order to dress the part, you have to have these other two pieces together. You have to know who you are, what you want to accomplish, and then you bring it all together by walking in that room feeling really confident, because people think that fashion is frivolous, and it is not. I mean, it's the first thing people see, right? So
Yeah.
in fact, your clothes actually walk into the room before you do.
Yeah.
And if you knew that, people don't think about it. It's a simple statement, right? Your clothes walk into the room before you do. If you knew that, then you'd make sure that
No, breaking up on my end. Right
you
there.
might have to record, we might have to record that again because you froze.
Yeah, you froze too, but all right, you're back. You're back. Your clothes walks into the room before you. And I know that I'm thinking in my head, we published an article on the She's Boss website. I think it was probably late last year, early this year, not just about your clothes, but about appearance and how that plays into your career progression. Because you're right, like people make a split second judgment about you before you even open your mouth.
Right.
So how you show up, like literally show up before you even open your mouth, is super important.
Yeah.
With all that said, and kind of sticking with your model of own your career, own your influence, and owning your style. And we're saying that Executive Presence is really just your personal brand. So even with that stated, there's a difference between like a frontline secretary, nothing wrong with these jobs, and the person in the corner office. So
Yeah.
how do you, kind of thinking again with your mind, on your career, on your influence, on your style, how do we, what are we in control of to appear as a leader, like in a leadership position, without actually being in one?
Okay, I love this question because I do get this a lot. There is the only difference between the person who's at the front, meaning the receptionist, and the person in the CEO is that they wanted that position,
Mm.
right? So if you're the receptionist and you want that position, then you'll be doing all of these things that I say at every level that you are in,
Gotcha.
right? You're not going to stay in that position unless you want to. I mean, there are people who love that position and they lead from there, and that is all fine and good, right? As long as they're doing what they want to do and they're presenting themselves in the way that they want. and they have the job that they want. But if you're trying to move up into a leadership position in a company, you've got to lead at every stage on your way up the ladder. And what that means is doing all of the things that I'm saying, but as they reflect on your new position. So every time is that once you move up, are you bringing somebody else with you? Are you paying attention to what it takes to get to the next level? Or are you just expecting someone else to tell you? All right, I'll give a great example. I was a receptionist at a golf company, one of the largest in the world. And I was one of maybe 4 Black people in the entire company, in not in manufacturing. Okay. And I was the only Black person in my building.
Okay.
And there wasn't a lot of women either because it was a golf company. So I was hired as the receptionist. And could you imagine a Black receptionist at a golf company? This was in the early 90s. So it wasn't like today where everybody's like, okay, we need diversity. It was my presence. When I went in, I was sitting out there and the HR person comes up and she tells me, "You're the best dressed person we have had come in this building. And what made you dress like that?" And
Wow.
she's asking me, like, because most people thought golf company and they came in golf pants and a polo. So, or just some kind of dress down. And this HR person was a fashionista and she had on a full suit and she had the whole thing going on. So she related to me. And then I got into that position and I was the first person everyone saw that came in the building. So I relished that. And I made sure that I knew what everyone in the whole company did and every celebrity coming in for their golf clubs and things, I learned who they were. So it's really because why? I didn't want to sit up in the front the whole time, forever and ever. I wanted to move out. So I took it upon myself. Nobody was coming up saying the receptionist should be in marketing, right? So that's what I mean by leading where you are. I became a leader there. People came to me to ask me what's going on here in this company because I knew what was going on and I made sure to find out. So you can do that anywhere. And whenever I, hear people tell me that they've been in the same position, and sometimes, yes, there is discrimination, and there are people trying to hold you down. But if that's the case, you should know when the writing's on the wall and you need to get out. Like, I don't have sympathy for people who tell me they hate their job and they're in it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Do you not know who you are? Do you not know that you could offer what you can offer another company? So yeah, I really believe it's all on you. If you're going to be held back at one spot, move on to the next. Find a company that wants someone like you.
Okay.
And you could say, don't say easier said than done, but because it's not actually, it is easy when you know who you are and you make that decision.
Okay, so I have
and that's gravitas right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back to those original 3. I'm gonna tell a quick story about me as well. I have a similar story to your golf story. I worked in a bank before and I started as a teller. Moved up to like a customer service position, but I had my eye on being in marketing and really owning it and not just kind of sitting there waiting when I saw the opportunities, not even just a job opportunity to move into another position, but when they're putting out marketing things just in general, I took it upon myself to message the VP of marketing, yes, and critique, like send a message like, I don't know why you put this in there. I'm not sure if I agree with that, or this is my opinion, or what's going on here. And I ended up in the marketing department, not in the position that I wanted. And to your point of the writing on the wall, the writing was on the wall. And after maybe a year or so in that position, I decided to move on from there and moved on into a director of marketing position from there, because I saw that it wasn't going to happen there. But definitely agree with taking things into your own hands. Discrimination is an absolute thing. Systemic racism is an absolute thing. And oftentimes it happens unbeknownst to anyone, but it's typically not because they're being like vindictive, but more so because they're not being intentional to make a change. But kind of bringing it back to like those original three of like gravitas, right? Because that's a fancy word. So can you break it down for us? Like, what does gravitas mean?
Gravitas just means confidence, basically. It means having the confidence to walk in the room, have all eyes on you, and be able to do something. Okay. That's really all broken down. It sounds like a big word. I mean, it just means being basically I'd say a big personality. Even if you're an introvert, you still can have gravitas. You can still be confident in knowing, you know what, I'm an introvert. This is how I tell people, this is how I process. I may not be talking a lot, but I'm listening to you. It's a way of you telling them who you are before they make the wrong,
Gotcha.
the wrong decision about you. Yeah.
Like whatever.
That's my easy way of talking about gravitas.
No, I think I would agree with that. That's pretty much what I hear as well when it comes to gravitas. Essentially, your confidence. So as
some people think it's boasting or, but the best example I could give about gravitas is the old adage that men, when they apply to a job, they only need to have 30% of the qualifications, and then they're like, I got this.
Okay.
Right? They apply. Us, we need 80%. Because we're like, oh, I don't have this. Oh, I don't have that. Oh, I can't apply. They only look at the things that they have and they're like, yep, got it.
And that's true. Even with that attitude, when it comes to, women and having that, it's like, oh, I can't apply. Sometimes we still apply, but then we're still bringing that attitude with us.
If to the interview.
I made it to the interview, and
you're in there like, you apologize. Like this. You apologize in the interview. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have this qualification. No, that's not gravitas.
You get in there, you figure it out.
Yeah, right.
All right. So I know we're running out of time and I want to get to the other two. So let's shift to communication, right? Yeah. So when it comes to communication, like what are like the elements of communication that exude leader?
Yeah. So this is beyond being able to speak properly or to, sound like a leader, right? It's really about using your energy, the volume of your voice, and having authority when you speak. And the other thing I talk about in communication skills is not talking about stuff you don't know about, right? That's the easiest way to have somebody shut down on you, is when you want to argue a point that you really don't know about. You don't have to know every single thing people are talking about, right? So for communication, the biggest thing for women, I'd say, is they need to drop their voice a little, right? You and also the answering a question with a question, right? Or so it sounds like a question. For example, inflection. Where they're like, no, I'm telling you, no, you're telling, are you asking? Are you telling? Like, don't confuse people with that. So the big tip is to drop your voice, and people, will think you have authority.
And what's so interesting,
back it up by knowing what you're talking about.
Yes. And what's so interesting about that, Black women, we are such a small percentage of leadership positions, in particular, like executive level CEO positions, right? Like we're less than 4%, 5%, even though we're like 20% of the workforce, and we are quickly climbing to being the most educated group like in the country. And in general, just as a people, we tend to have a lower voice
Mhm.
than white women, but yet we're still not seeing the same level of being in those leadership positions. Now, I'm not necessarily asking a question about this, but just kind of thinking out loud and like pointing that out. So even when given with that tip, it's like, I guess that kind of goes back to your previous point of the writing is on the wall. Like if you're there and you're exuding all these things, but you're still not moving, something else is
You
the
have,
problem.
right, there's something else, right? And it could be them. And then you really got to go, because even when you get to that position, you're not going to love it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're going to make it so hard for you. So yeah, that's part of being a leader too, is to know when to move on.
Okay.
When to move on. But yeah, so communication, we talked about, dropping your voice and really speaking with authority. And that doesn't mean being loud. You don't have to speak over people in order to be heard. If you are being intentional about a conversation. So
I think that's
that's
good.
that. And then the other thing on that is body language, right?
Very true. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Was it
So
80% or 20% of communication is
it, it's
like,
actually 90%. Yeah,
see, even more.
90%, right? So people can hear you talking, but if they see you doing this, they're not listening anymore, or
Mhm.
they're thinking you're lying. You're not telling me what's straight up. So I would I would say practice. If you have body language where you're all over the place or you're using your hands a lot, practice in the mirror. Like, what am I trying to get across? And practice, talking with maybe not using your hands so much, or looking directly in someone's eyes when you're talking to them. Um, Leaning in when you're interested in a
Mhm.
conversation, right? That's the worst, is being in an interview with someone who's like leaning back.
Mm.
So I have a really good tip on that when I'm coaching people for interview, is to not sit all the way back in the chair, to sit up so it already looks like you're interested in what they have to say. That's just a little trick. Don't sit all the way back and lean. You see, that's a difference right here,
It
just with
is
the
like
voice.
it's a clear
You're
difference. Like you're just way too relaxed.
too
Like you don't
loud.
care.
Yes. And I'm right here, I'm like leaning in, I'm talking to you because I'm really interested in what you're saying. And I want you to be interested in me. I need you to look in my eyes too. Right. So I'm going to be right up on you.
All right, so last two pieces. So we'll touch on parents real quick. I know we have a whole nother conversation just dedicated to a parent. So let's touch on it real quick. In particular, though, as it relates to executive presence and exuding, leadership qualities. So we talked a little bit earlier about being authentic and showing up as yourself and owning your style. And we also talked about that, there's a unspoken-ish standard of what a leader looks like. It's the suit, it's the buttoned up. Like, is there any wiggle room in there to bring, like, I love your sweater, I love the color. Like, is there room for that, especially as a student or a young professional just entering the workforce? Should they kind of kick it back a little bit and kind of just mix with the culture, or can they come right out and be like, this is me, and I like to wear bright colors, I like to wear things like this? Like, where are the boundaries?
Yeah, this is my favorite topic. And I hope we could I get to come back and do a whole nother session on just this, right? So I have a little system that I use. It's called the 3 Ps, right? For dressing professionally or dressing with purpose, I call it. So you have your purpose piece. And that is, what maybe is kind of the uniform, or something that's easy for you to dress. So if you're able to wear jeans to work, it could be a great pair of jeans, could be your purpose piece, or a black dress, easy. That's the piece that you can throw on when you're going to work, right? And then you get your power piece. So that could be, what about you is like what you want people to see. So is it, oh, you like bright colors? That could be your power piece. So if you have to dress in a suit, like if in the banks, they're getting a little more lax now, but some banks you still have to dress up.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to dress up in a suit, maybe it's a black suit. If they say we want black suits only, well, you could wear a nice piece of jewelry as your power piece in fun colors. It could be African print if that's what you love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can bring your culture and bring yourself into it in different ways. So you could have a power piece. It could be a great purse. It could be a great watch. Something that makes you feel like this, when I walk in, they're going to notice something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of giving you that power, right? And it's usually the piece people say, oh my gosh, I love your necklace. I love your earrings. Or wow, that watch. Okay. Your shoes even could be your power piece. If you got to dress a certain way at work, change it up with the shoes, bring it in that way. It's not, and before I explain it, the third piece is your personality piece. So this could be something like a crisp white shirt. If that's, you know, like I love a good white shirt. I could throw it on with a long skirt for the evening or jeans or whatever. That's my personality piece. Love it. Or it could be a print like leopard print. If you could see my entire closet here, you'd probably find a whole section of leopard print shoes and bags and clothes. Love that. And then you wear them sparingly. So you put your purpose piece on, you throw your power piece on, and you put your personality piece on. And so whatever place you're going into, you're going to have a piece of yourself in that outfit in some way. So if you get to wear jeans to work, you wear your jeans and your fun necklace and your or great shoes. And then you're setting yourself apart. And that piece could be a culture piece, right? If you're going to work, like I said, your suit, put a shirt on under that suit that is, could be an African print. It could be, you know, whatever is your personality, that's how you bring it in. Where we go wrong sometimes is we think, well, I'm going to be me. And you're going to throw on every piece of something that you think is the culture and you're going to wear it and it's not appropriate for that place that you're going. Okay. So if you think about clothing as, you know, it's a reflection of you and your headspace, where you want to be and what you want people to think of you. Why would you want to distract people from hearing your voice, from knowing what you could do because they're so busy trying to figure out what are you wearing right now?
Okay.
Or why, if you're, you know, I have an example of this. I styled a lovely woman from Nigeria. And she came in with her African headpiece, her whole outfit. She looked gorgeous, but she was going to work in a bank. Mm-hmm. That was not going to work. So we had to help her figure out how could she take what she loved about that style and wear it to work. Yeah. Because no one's telling you not to be yourself. They're just saying, can you be appropriate for work or for my space and then go home and do all the other stuff, right? To me, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with an employer requesting that you fit into their mold because that's what they need, right? Yeah. But you don't have to turn into everyone else. You can still bring yourself to that. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of feedback on that part, I bet. But I'm still gonna stick to it. So y'all can bring the questions to me, but I'm gonna stick to that.
Yeah, it's a lot coming up for me. I'm gonna save it for the Q&A because I'm thinking about some of like the popular ones like hair, like we can't, yes. Like I have locks, you know, I've had loose natural hair before. So some of the things it's hard to play on, but I think that all goes back to what you're saying before, like be yourself, be appropriate, but if they can't respect it and accept it, then move on. Yeah. So no, I totally get it. Last thing before we call it done is let's touch real quick on the virtual space. So we've talked about a lot of this like body language. Granted, in a virtual space, we can see like from our chest up. So there's some body language that people can see, even appearance we can see from like the chest up. So, and then even Gravitas. I don't know how many challenges come up with showing, well, you know, that is actually a new challenge, showing confidence on a screen, especially if you're not used to doing it. So in this new space of more virtual offices and doing more, you know, virtual meetings and communications, how can we ensure, like, give us some quick tips on how we can ensure that we are exuding gravitas and communicating appropriately and we are showing up well and, you know, we're showing up like leaders.
Right. So showing up like a leader means getting up. Don't get up 5 minutes before your Zoom meeting because you're working from home. Get up, get dressed, even if it's from the waist up, like me. I got jeans on under here. And yesterday I had pajamas on under it, but I got dressed, right? So show people that you were actually prepared for this meeting. That's the first way to exude confidence in a meeting. And do your hair. I can't tell you how many Zoom meetings I've been on and people come like they just rolled out of bed. Don't even think that your boss is not clocking that. They might not say anything to you, but they're clocking it and they're talking about it. And then they're calling people like me saying, can you come and do a session at work to teach our people how to dress for Zoom meetings? That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Why? Why should a boss need to pay somebody to come in when you already know how you're supposed to show up to work? Right? But I like getting paid for that, so it's okay.
I'm like, you fuck yourself
keep on looking crazy on Zoom. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that. But that's one thing. Get up before the Zoom, get dressed, and get on and be serious. And then the other thing is, if you know, your background should be about you. Like, this again is another way that they're seeing into who you are. And if you're in a background where it's a mess, they're noting that. I've had conversations with people saying, oh my gosh, she was in her kitchen and there were dishes all over. Nobody needs to see that. This is about what you want people to see. Right? This is about how you want people to perceive yourself. So now you're giving them a window into your life outside of work. You are showing it all. So what do you want to show? We're in my closet right now. And everybody knows, everybody knows me. They know I love fashion. I love clothes. So I'm okay to be in my closet. But if your closet is all a disaster, don't be in your closet. Right? If you're, and you know, it's tough when you have kids, and I know that. Put the background, put the virtual background on, and just remember when you're on it to stay, you know, in the same position, because otherwise they can still see when you move, the background moves. So be cognizant of that. But just find a quiet space. If you don't have, you know, a closet space like this, or your beautiful background with all your plants. And I mean, that's gorgeous. And to me, that actually seems like who I've met.
Yep, this is my personality wall.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of traveling. So like I put like my travel pieces up and
I see the license plate. And that seems like the way you described yourself to me. Right. So that's how everything about you should match. What you say to people, what you believe in, what matters to you, all of that should match. The way you dress fits into that. If you tell me you love fashion and then you come to work with a wrinkled shirt and all that, I'm like, what? Wait, it doesn't match. It doesn't match. And so not only is being on Zoom dressed, ready, prepared, nice background, pay attention in the Zoom call. There's so many times you see people and they're on their phone, but they don't think they're on their phone, but they're on their phone. Can't you tell I'm on my phone right now? Okay, right? Pay attention in the meeting, because nothing is worse than if you didn't write down what the asks were, because sometimes people don't do a summary after a Zoom meeting, right? Or you don't get the recording, or you might not get the chat notes. You should know what happened in the meeting. I will be glad, I tell you, when Zoom meetings are not like the everyday thing, but I don't think it's going away. So now people are going to be judging you based on that. In the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of cute. Oh, she's got her pajamas on. It's not cute anymore. It's been
Normal now.
a year and a half, almost 2 years. People expect you now. You're back to work. So let's be about work.
Very true.
And especially if you're an entrepreneur, I'm not buying anything from you if you come to the Zoom meeting like looking like you were not prepared for me, right? So that's another piece, but we could talk about that again. It's like knowing your audience too, you know?
Yeah, we could go on and on and on and on about this, especially in
got no time.
such a big topic, but we'll have the Q&A to go a little bit deeper, go into a little bit more topics. But I just want to say thank you again, Alyssa.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited to be in your boss group. What are you calling the group? What
So the organization is called She's a Boss, but we've actually been playing around with different words for like what are, you know, on YouTube, like people call each other different things. Some people are best friends, and some people are, you know, they're honeys. I don't know. I'm playing around with different things. One of the things that come to mind is elevators, but I don't know. I'm gonna do a little vote and see what people think. I've been feeling elevators, right? Because we elevate people in their careers, and we want people to elevate in their careers. So we'll see where we land. But I
like that. Okay, I like that. So maybe when I come back, you'll have that together, and I'll be one of the elevators. Or
and now hearing somebody else say it, I just like it even more. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see where we land. But thank you. And we will see each other again very soon to do the live Q&A. And but yeah, so
I look forward to it.
All right, y'all. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you also tune in to the Facebook Live Q&A happening Wednesday, August 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can leave some questions in the comment section of this YouTube video, or you can just tune into the live Q&A and ask your questions there. I will link the She's a Boss Facebook page in the description, and I will talk to y'all soon.